partidei. Delgado acolo este, va fi corner, dragi ascultători.
It's been about 2 years since Star Wars The Last Jedi transformed the critical landscape into a heaping mass of flaming juvenile crap that's basically eradicated any academic or an analytical discussion of Star Wars. Ever since that happened, I just thought it was a bit hair and boring, but apparently you can't. Any critical discourse has been torpedoed. I bring this up because we are here to have a quick trailer discussion, or a half-hour trailer discussion, for Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, as directed by J. Abrams, who has returned to replace Colin Trevorrow. So,
yes.
You've seen the trailer, I've seen the trailer, the whole fucking world's seen the trailer. Talk to me.
Well, it's so. One thing I'll say they've got with this new crop of Star Wars films is they've kind of managed to create a little tradition and a thing around how the first teaser's released and everything, which I think is commendable. I think the other commendable side of it as well is that it is definitely a teaser. It doesn't appear to give away too much. I'm sure if you're steeped in lore, then you might be able to figure it out. I mean, but this is so. Obviously, we were saying this just before we were rolling about how Disney have don't consider.
They've just. I don't want to say destroy because that plays into too many people's hands. Mm-hmm. They have essentially erased the expanded universe because that was all just considered canon and part of it, and that's all gone. And it's been, as of whenever they launched The Force Awakens, I guess, their materials have supplanted that.
Right.
Because there was a very involved, laid out thing of what happened next, and they don't. You know, if they adopted that, then they would have to do it all in their film series, I think.
I think another happy byproduct of that as well is that when trailers are released, you don't have people jumping on the internet going, well, in episode, like issue blah of comic and working it all out. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I was thinking about this earlier. So let's get round to that. I think the thing at the top of the discussion, let's talk about the trailer itself. Now, obviously, we're into a 3-film cycle. We're probably among some of the most expensive films ever made at the highest possible level within the Hollywood system, in Western cinema at least. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm saying it's a very high production value. That's very clear. It's a Star Wars film. It's part of Disney's kind of ongoing mission to subsume all of humanity, I guess.
Seems to be. We're into
if they start buying up, self-regulating meat grinder technology, we are going to be turned into sausages. We're going to be Soylent Greened by Disney.
Yeah.
Cast returning, obviously there's some new cast members. The kind of big thing is that Carrie Fisher's in there from sort of archive footage. Luke Skywalker's voice is in there. I mean, I'm going to be perfectly honest. Looking at it, it's sort of like, I know I'm wrong, but it was one analysis I saw was like, oh well, Rey's wearing a new costume, and I was like, is she? It's that kind of variation on the white bandage robe thing.
Well, yeah, I think the thing that obviously people were reading into that is that it says the Rise of Skywalker. She's wearing a sort of Luke-esque, sort of.
But it's quite similar to what she had before, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, it just seems like a cleaner version of.
I was going to a point with that, and I derailed myself. My point was when I first clicked on it, because I was kind of like, I wasn't in the loop for this.
Yeah.
So when I first clicked on it, I was kind of like, oh, I guess the Star Wars trailer's out. I'll watch that. And you get those fake trailers for things where fans have cut together archive footage and whatever. First couple of seconds, I was like, oh, this is fake. This is from The Force Awakens. Right. Because it's her standing in a desert in the robe.
Yeah.
And then when it started coming, and I was like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. Something that they've done in this, and it's something that got really talked about with The Force Awakens, which I'm roundly unconvinced by, is like, so there are visual lifts in The Force Awakens. Well, okay, specific example from Apocalypse Now. So it's the TIE fighters and the haze and the sunset, right? Yeah. And someone did a kind of shot-by-shot breakdown comparing this to North by Northwest.
Well, because she's running away from a.
There are some quite clear shot matches.
Okay.
So it's like the kind of the plane thing. The difference being that Cary Grant doesn't do a backflip over the plane.
With a laser sword.
But also, that's lovely. It doesn't mean anything. I mean, nothing particularly in The Force Awakens evoked Vietnam or anything like. There's a war. That's that in the broad strokes, sure, but they're kind of nice, but sort of meaningless callbacks to other stuff. And when you do a callback to Francis Ford Coppola, you are doing admittedly, he was very much in that kind of West Coast sort of area of Lucas and Spielberg, and you know, and they making films at the same time. They were part of the post-crash kind of brats and whatever. All right, in the broader kind of metatextual sense, but then sort of like also Hitchcock. I mean, it's just there for the sake of being there. You know.
Yeah, it's look. I
haven't watched the film yet.
No, I suppose it's one of those things where you go, well, if I have to show those things, it's interesting to pick that. Yeah, because I see it as weirdly, I don't see it as sort of creatively bankrupt as something like Batman vs Superman is with its references.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, for whatever reason, I don't know why I give it more.
Well, because they are more subtle.
They're more subtle, and they don't. Yeah, that's true. And they're not trying to make a big thing out of. Look, I recreated this image on the screen. Aren't I clever?
Yeah, look what I've seen.
I think it's one of those things. If you're going to show, I suppose perhaps what Juju is getting at is if you're making a sci-fi film, and you're going to have at one point your protagonist or a character running away from a flying device, whatever that is. Why not shoot it like a famous thing that's, you know, because it shows a connection.
I will say that, you know, it's harmless. The thing with the Zack Snyder version of this would be one of the characters would look at the camera and say, it's like North by Northwest. Well, you know what I mean?
Where's that TIE fighter heading? Is it North by Northwest?
I'll use my Jedi compass.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, okay, so I mean, that's fine. And I guess it's fine. It's kind of pointless and I don't think it adds anything. It looks very nice. Of course, John Williams comes back. This is, you know, I'm not being morbid, probably John Williams' final Star Wars score. I mean, he's not doing the ancillary movies, and he's like 80-something, and they brought him back for this. So I hope he fucking retire. Dude, retire, man, John. Just retire, enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, Force Awakens, I'm, you know, just about on the negative side of ambivalent with that film. And, bless you.
Thank you.
And it...
Sorry.
And it's just, you just reminded me that I've not referenced the fact there's a dog in here at all. There's a dog in here. That's Winston. He's the new Val Verde dog. There is some really lovely music in The Force Awakens. Not The Force Awakens. Last Jedi is what I was meaning to say. There was a particular theme in the trailer for Last Jedi that I really liked. It's fucking John Williams.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Man needs some fucking purity.
I've got
some as well. Okay.
Have you?
I got some. Yeah, we'll do that in a minute. Yeah. So. You know, John Williams' music, that's always going to be great. I'd be perfect as I haven't checked who's the cinematographer. I haven't looked at any of that stuff yet, but it's high-end, it's Star Wars, it looks good. You know, and these films are really nicely edited. I personally like the cast. People love to have a go at the cast, but I've always liked the cast in these, and I particularly like having Eddie Hitler in Last Jedi, because he is, Aiden Edmondson is great. I
think that was a great pick as well, because it's like, if you know, you know. But if you don't, I think it was just still you know, his performance wasn't too much, which was nice. I think he was...
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, and I saw a nice thing from Ryan Johnson where he'd like sketched a picture of Vivian from The Young Ones and given it to Aid Edmondson.
Nice. I
missed Aid Edmondson's band at Festival. I was gutted by that. I got there a day late. I'd love to seen Aid Edmondson's band. Yeah, so I mean, what I'm trying to do here, I'm sort of eschewing the normal kind of fan theory crap because that's not my bag. You know,
there's plenty of that on the YouTubes anyway.
We will invariably have to talk about plot and obviously the imagery that's used here. I mean, the main thing would appear that the kind of crest of the concave part of the Death Star is rested on a planet.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk of that. That's the Jedi Death Star that's crashed into Endor or something.
The Jedi Death Star?
There's in the
Return of the
Jedi.
I thought it's like there's a good Death Star. It's like it shoots flowers. Yeah, no, sorry, the Return of the Jedi Death Star.
Back.
I've found out this. I always thought that Endor was a moon. No, I always thought the events of Return of the Jedi took place on a moon of Endor. But
the planet moon of Endor, they call it. So I don't know if it's a planet that is orbiting like a moon around.
According to the internet, it's unclear. And the amount of stuff that gets nailed down in Star Wars, the forest moon of Endor. Sorry, So is Endor the planet? Because it's the moon of Endor.
Yeah, true.
Or is it the moon of Endor? It's called the moon's called
the
Endor.
forest moon of.
So Endor, basically, where that must have crashed, it's got to be fucking Endor or the moon on Endor. It's Endor's planet area.
Was Endor? I'm trying to remember how it's represented in Return of the Jedi, but is Endor or the forest moon? Is it represented as being bigger or smaller than the Death Star. I don't even know.
It must be
bigger.
It must be bigger. Yeah, it must be bigger. Fucking
fuck knows.
Yeah,
but that's because there was some concept art leaked or found or whatever of Rey literally diving.
Yeah.
To the Death Star.
So
like
in the original script for Force Awakens, she was called Kira, and there was going to be some kind of MacGuffin being retrieved from the Death Star, which may well have been the Skywalker lightsaber. That's another thing. Here's the heffalump in the room for my money, and the way I viewed this. They haven't planned these out, right? So J.J. Abrams and Lawrence Kasdan set up a bunch of stuff in The Force Awakens, and it would appear that they sort of did a mic drop, and it's like, well, Disney will know what to do with this, and then they just let Rian Johnson do whatever he wanted, and Rian Johnson clearly didn't like a bunch of stuff, so he walked back a load of stuff from The Force Awakens. He did loads of his own shit. He didn't continue. Like, what frustrated me about The Last Jedi is it doesn't pay off loads of stuff that was teed up throughout. Yeah. And it's just this really frustrating thing to watch. And then loads of people kind of, but it subverts your expectations. It's like, that's not inherently clever.
No. And it's like, because Empire kind of subverts certain things about Star Wars, but it is still at its heart a continuation of those characters and a building on those characters and themes as well. So, yeah, it's not.
So it's just a deliberate kind of, clearly they had plans for Snoke, and clearly they wanted to do stuff with the Knights of Ren, and they would do all this shit. Clearly they had stuff for Rey's parents. G-Ren. I never thought that. Yeah, that makes it fun.
Happy, joy.
I think this is going to be like 3 hours long, and it's going to be mostly course correction, because J.J. Abrams now has to fit 2 stories worth of film into one film.
Yeah.
And a really telling thing, and I'm surprised they put it in the trailer, is there's scenes of Kylo Ren's helmet being welded back together, because there's a kind of dramatic thing in The Last Jedi where he smashes his helmet up, and clearly they didn't want to do that, so now he's fucking literally having his helmet glued back together.
I know, and we've got a lot of, like, Luke obviously doesn't feel like he's gone. I mean, I dare say that was never the intention, was to to kill Luke.
No way.
Like, Rian Johnson obviously really wanted to essentially make the ending, and kind of tried to do that, and it's like, it doesn't.
I'm not saying Luke wasn't going to die, but Luke dying in the second one.
It's weird.
So now there's this thing where it's like, okay, so he's just going to be a super present ghost.
Yeah.
The big, So yeah, I embarked upon the elephant in the room. I didn't talk about it. I'm all about tangents today. It would appear that Ian McDiarmid is back as Emperor or Palpatine. Because not only did he have the laugh, but they wheeled him out.
Yeah, he was
the
there,
Star Wars
thing.
Yeah. He is an absolute joy to watch. So at the very least, if he's in it, great. I love it. I loved him in Utopia. He's done loads of great stuff. He's a fucking tremendous actor. And I put him in a similar box to Hugo Weaving in the Matrix sequels. I can't stand those, but every time Hugo Weaving's on screen, it's just this brilliant performance, and he knows it's garbage, so he totally hams it up. Yeah. It's great. And Ian McDiarmid is the Emperor. I mean, he was great in Jedi, but that was just them hiring some actor.
It's a very last-minute thing, I think.
Well, they didn't even have him in fucking Empire, you know what I mean?
No.
But in the prequels, he's one of the best. When he turns up, and particularly in Episode 3, where he just goes mental.
Balls to the wall in that.
So great. Again, not a fan of the prequels either, particularly. And I did a whole video about how I'm kind of ambivalent about Star Wars these days. And yes, I'm talking about Star Wars again, but kind of have to get them sweet clicks, boy. Cynicism. But Ian McDiarmid in the prequels, he was wonderful. He was so good. Like he pantomimes it up, and when he turns into the Emperor, he just goes, like I say, balls to the wall. So if he's back, yeah, fuck it, why not? I mean,
I'm not going to embark upon tons of theories as to how he's back or why he's back or any of that sort of stuff. I mean, look, we don't know, and I sort of find it faintly silly when people sit around and speculate about it, like it's like theorizing about black holes or whatever. Like it's something that's actually like, well, we're going to discover this amazing thing. It's like discovering Tutankhamun or something. It's like, no, someone's written and shot this. It's that people know what it is.
People hate this, right? And I've got in trouble for it before, but fuck it. It's a kid's film about space wizards, ultimately. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, do you know how Palpatine survived? He's an immortal fucking dark wizard monster face man. Like, keeping in mind he fell down the reactor core of an artificially created planet and he was thrown in there by a magic robot. Like, don't give me this fucking, how could he survive? Who gives a shit? He probably turned into a ghost and then cloned himself from an old bollock or something. It's going to be some crazy space opera shit. There's no point speculating. It's a waste of time.
There's all that talk, isn't there, about... is it Darth Plagueis or something from the prequels who could cheat death or something?
Yes.
So there's, but I mean, how he worked that out in his brief trip down a fucking... like, nah! Oh, hang on.
Wait a minute!
He's like quickly scribbling it down and there's like an equation.
He had it written on a napkin.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's
God.
like, wait, quick, R1, left, right.
Yes, very good.
Square triangle.
Up, down, left, right. Hold start and press A. I understand what is.
I mean, he fell down a massive shaft, exploded in a Death Star that was then blown the fuck up.
It's literally about magic. That's how he's alive. Who cares? None of it means anything. I'm freaking out the dog. Jeez. Right. Okay. So, look. I understand from what I've seen in the discourse, and this is kind of the whole. It would seem that the theme of the prequel trilogy really and the Sith thing is an obsession with trying to reverse death.
Yeah.
And particularly episode 3 is about how they try to reverse death. And I understand in the mythology that Jedi can come back as ghosts and Sith can't, which is why they're obsessed with extending their lives and trying to cheat death.
Yeah, that's interesting, yeah.
And I know that in the stuff that Disney have done in all their games and stuff, and books and shit, it would appear that they've sown this kind of idea that Palpatine was off looking for something mysterious outside of known space that we don't know about yet.
Right, okay.
So it'd seem he may have found the way to cheat death.
I'm just off to outside space now.
I'm off.
Don't mind me, I'll be gone for 1 to 2 films and then I'll be back 12 parsecs down the road.
I know that's kind of a Billy Connolly thing, but it sounds like my auntie.
I'm away to fucking... Yeah, well, it sounds like my great aunt, my grandma, like they're all...
Yeah, it's my great aunt. Yeah, my great aunt's like that, bless her.
I'm away to space, son. We're in here, son. There was just...
Oh God, yeah. Well, he's off away to space. Old. So they've been setting up this stuff that Palpatine and J.J. Abrams is saying that it was always a plan for Palpatine to come back. Now, I do believe that because he was clearly setting up something completely different to Rian Johnson, but didn't expect to have to complete it himself. And from what I understand now, Colin Trevorrow was really far along. And they scrapped the whole Trevorrow pitch and started again with. Because I remember when Trevorrow left or was fired, I think there was a quote from Kathleen Kennedy saying something along the lines of, "We're hearing JJ's pitch." It's like, you're hearing his pitch? It comes out in 2 years, you mad cunt. Like, what are you talking about? You'll be hearing someone's pitch? Like, this is going off. Like,
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, look, far be it for me to criticise the powers that be, my gigantic overlords that literally are like a galactic empire and could crush me like an ant if I was nasty about them.
If you want to buy us, Disney, we are open to offers.
Fair enough.
If you want to buy this.
I look at... It's very hard to sort of know what's going on. Obviously, she's effectively... There's an interesting thing now because I think because of the movie, the sort of advent of the movie franchise, and there's always been franchises, but like the kind of connected universes and all that kind of stuff, which wasn't there really with the original Star Wars, and even the prequels. But now you have effectively showrunners, like you do with TV,
yeah.
And it's like
this is the blending of the two worlds. Isn't it?
It's the betting of the farm so much that goes on these things that I think probably leads to things like that. I don't know why this has happened now on 2 subsequent films that. Like this happened with Solo as well, didn't it? I mean, the literally directors were fired, and they were all like really far along.
It's crazy because they seem to be doing what Marvel do, which is taking punts on people, but then just not liking their pitches.
But to allow it to get to that point, it's like.
But also remember your man from Chronicle, Josh Trank. He got kind of kicked off a Boba Fett movie,
right?
Because of his behaviour on Fantastic before. Yeah. That was in the background of all this stuff, but that before all this kicked off. So there's already a precedent for that, and people seem to forget. I mean, because I in a jocular way referred to Kathleen Kennedy as a C-bomb. I didn't mean it like that because I know loads of internet well, also cunts are going to latch onto that. It's like, yeah, Kathleen Kennedy. Kathleen Kennedy worked with George Lucas for decades and has been behind a number of really huge hits at Lucasfilm in some capacity or another. She's not like this kind of witch that wants to ban beer and ice cream and put you in jail. Like, I mean, the degree to which she's culpable for this is very unclear to me.
Well, that's it. I mean, and she's a studio head. So effectively, it's like she bears the brunt for all this stuff. But bear in mind, she has also been taking punts as well. I mean, the thing you've got to see it as is that she's been taking chances on kind of out there projects. I mean, obviously that Last Jedi got done and came out like that. I mean, obviously that's, you know, if that's
well, I assume the final word is on her, and she looked at Rian Johnson's pitch and script and took it. You know, so fair dues. Maybe she fucked up. But I'm just quite sick of all these fucking internet, all these YouTube videos about how she's ruining Star Wars. Blah, blah, blah. It's just kind of like, dude, she's been involved in Lucasfilm for years. Like, and there are bigger things, there are bigger kind of wheels moving, and you know, the impetus behind this is Disney rather than Lucasfilm. And I'm not going to say, oh, Bob Iger's Satan either. You know, these are people with jobs. They're not sat in some. You know, people imagine, like, remember that? What was it, like the Springfield Republicans, where like Dracula's there or whatever in The Simpsons? Like, do you remember that one? It's like any scenes of like meetings of people. You know, like they're off in a dungeon somewhere.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like that doesn't happen. There's not some secret agenda. They haven't. And this is the other thing, it's like, oh yeah, well, this massive corporation have put aside profit to seek some kind of agenda. It's like, no, they're trying to make money, and this is how they've chosen to do it.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think as well, sometimes these, I genuinely think sometimes a lot of these films smack of overthinking things and over-egging puddings and stuff, and I think, I suppose it does feed into that filmmaking by committee stuff, or spreadsheet decision-making that we often decry, but I understand, I suppose it's just because we've gotten into an era now where these things cost like the GDP of a small country like Val Verde, and although we don't have GDP, we redistribute all wealth.
Nice, good catch.
But it's I suppose it's just the sheer amount of money that's involved in these things. I wonder though, I really do about. Obviously, we'll never get to see the balance sheet, but it's kind of like I don't know that they actually spend that on it. I do think a lot of that is sort of cooked up for example, I think Solo was 300 mil, but that includes reshooting the whole film essentially. So, but I mean, you sort of look at that and you go, well, you know, I mean, obviously it wasn't going to be a nice. They didn't just stop at 300 million. It wasn't like, you know, the craft services shut down immediately after. You know, I mean, there's wiggle room within that. I think a lot of these there's marketing as well, but there's a lot. I think a lot of these figures are like part of the marketing, part of the story of the film. You know what I mean? It's like 300 million. The next one's got to be, again, I mean, the two Avengers films, Infinity War and Endgame, supposedly were going to cost $1 billion.
That's grotesque, isn't it?
It's absurd.
I've got my tickets booked, but that's grotesque.
and I loved Infinity War, but I'm like, that to me did not look like a $500 million film.
I think it's the sheer scale of it, isn't it? What's being mounted and the amount of stars that are in it and how their profiles have inflated.
I think it's that. Yeah, they don't underestimate the salaries that are going on here and stuff as well. But yeah, it's I don't know.
The bottom line for me on these is that I think they've been mishandled on one level or another, and I don't lay that at Kathleen Kennedy's door, because I think there's way more moving parts, and you have to be mature and look at this as the fact, you know, it's a giant system and there's more than one person involved, and you can't just, some fucker in their bedroom on the internet, rather than their living room like us, is just sitting around putting this stuff out their arsehole and making a YouTube video about it. You know, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't come from any place inside the industry.
No.
So yeah, you know, look, from my point of view, I do kind of think they've been mishandled. Something that I've said from the beginning, and I gave quite a positive review to Force Awakens when I first watched it. I found it interminably boring the second time I watched it, but I quite liked it the first time I watched it because it restored a lot of energy to Star Wars.
Yeah.
But what I've always said is there's no point. It's like every saga has an end. It's like, yeah, it's called Return of the Jedi. Like, we watched them all wrap up and walk off into the sunset, and now you've dragged us back into it. You've had to pull all of this out of your arsehole. The Emperor's dead. He fell down a thing and blew up, right? Like, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, it ended, and now you've had to pull all this, because this is supposedly the Skywalker saga, and it's like, well, is it? I mean, you've got fucking Luke Skywalker's nephew.
We spend no time with him.
Well,
How much time have we actually spent with Luke Skywalker?
and this is the thing that's kind of effusive because the rise of Skywalker is it's going to be a surprise. It's kind of like last time it's like, yeah, but who is the last Jedi? And it's like Rey, I guess, and I guess Rey's going to turn out to be Anne Skywalker or something. Like it's going to be like, oh well, she's a reincarnation of Anakin because fucking they use Sith alchemy, and it's just
Kylo Ren is a Skywalker.
He's going to become a Skywalker instead of being a Ren. Like you've had to make all this up. There was no story. You were done. You were finished. There was nothing left, and you've just pulled this out of your fucking arsehole.
The frustrating thing, I suppose, as well, is that there didn't seem to be much of a desire to shift. I mean, because now we're two films into this trilogy. There wasn't much of a desire to shift to other characters. I mean, I know we get Daisy Ridley and all that crowd, but they do seem there largely to service the old characters coming back. You know, their quests are always to find the old character or to utilise them in some way, and they don't seem to really be on their own 2 feet anymore. Whereas when you look at Star Wars, sorry. I can't remember which way around that is. Star Wars.
Just called Star Wars.
It's just called Star Wars. Luke Skywalker's thing is, he learns from Obi-Wan Kenobi and he needs him, but that whole arc in that film is about letting him go and relying on himself and growing up, essentially. That's what it's sort of, it's not even an allegory, it's what happens in the film. So by part 2, he's then wrestling with, but the sort of the elders and all that are in the background, but it's his journey, whereas I feel like with these ones, I don't know, Rey's journey I don't feel like I know she trains and I know she sort of stands up to Luke and all that kind of thing, but it's like, I don't ever feel like, at this point, I don't feel like she's really discovered much. And like all that stuff with Kylo Ren and them having a big, elaborate fight in whatever, Snoke's pad. It's all, none of that felt like it had much, we were saying much with it. And I wrestled, I have to say, I didn't understand much of the end of The Last Jedi, and I don't think a lot of people did, because it has obviously sparked an awful lot of, no, what happened? And it's like, well, you don't know. Yeah. You're just making that up. I think, that for me is a frustration. So if you imagine where we were at the end of Empire Strikes Back versus where we are now, in terms of like, oh my God, I can't wait to see what happens with these characters. I'm sort of, right now, I think people are like, oh my God, I can't wait to see what happens.
Well, Toby said, and I agree, that Star Wars is inherently backward looking. And this has done nothing but double down on that even more so, because now it's kind of, I mean, it literally went backwards with the prequels, and then now it's just kind of like the endless revisiting of things. I'm clocking the time, we've got about 2 minutes left, so I'm going to have to wrap this up. I will say this, hey, fucking Billy D. Williams is great, and he's like 83.
That's nuts, but he looks amazing. I love Billy D. And I love to see him come back, and I hope they don't kill him off in a cheap way or anything. I hope
they won't now, because they have to course correct murdering everyone else.
Okay, yeah. But, I will say this. I will say for the new films, and like you said, when I first saw Force Awakens, I loved it in the cinema. Subsequent viewings, less so, but they've got it does have that tangible Star Wars aesthetic to it. I do feel like they've really nailed the look.
Yeah,
and all that stuff.
They brought that back.
And it's exciting, and it has the pageantry, and it has all that stuff. So I'm not. It's just from a character and story side, which is quite a big bit.
Rather important.
Yeah, it's struggling, but you never know. This could be a really great wrapping up.
Yeah, who knows? If I enjoy it, I don't want to hate it. I got about a minute left. If you watch the first 30 seconds and ran to the comments to call me a Disney shill or whatever the fuck it is Star Wars fans say when they hate you these days, I don't know. I don't hate this. I'm ambivalent to it. I'm a bit fed up with this whole thing. I talked about it for 30 minutes and all the fucking cunts came out then with the knives because I was vaguely disparaging about a bit of Star Wars for a while. So, have fun. All engagement counts. It pushes us up in the algorithm. We're going to be back soon with more. We're shooting a bunch of episodes today. That be it. We hope you enjoyed that, and we'll catch you next time on whatever we're calling this. Goodbye. Support your 7th or 8th favourite YouTube channel by buying crap, tat, junk, hogwash and filth at redbubble.com/people/Val Verde Shop.